The coffee mug shattered against the conference room wall, and in that moment of flying ceramic and splattered espresso, I realized that discovering my boss's affair was about to cost me everything I'd worked 5 years to build. "Clean that up," Victoria Ashford commanded, her voice as cold as her perfectly manicured fingernails. "And next time, try not to be so clumsy during our morning briefings." I stared at the brown stains spreading across the pristine white wall of Meridian Marketing's executive conference room. The 20 department heads sat in uncomfortable silence, their eyes carefully averted from what everyone understood was not an accident. Victoria had accidentally bumped my elbow just as I was raising the mug to my lips, the same way she'd been accidentally making my life hell for the past 3 months. Ever since that rainy Tuesday evening, when I'd returned to the office to retrieve my forgotten laptop and discovered her pressed against the supply closet wall with Marcus Chen, our supposedly happily married creative director. "Perhaps we should move on to the quarterly performance reviews," Victoria announced, settling back into her leather chair. "I'm particularly interested in discussing some concerning trends in our digital analytics department." My department. My stomach dropped as every eye in the room turned toward me. I was still on my knees cleaning coffee from the marble when Victoria began her assassination. "Kanya Morrison has been with us for 5 years, Victoria began, her tone suggesting this was shameful rather than evidence of loyalty. "During that time, her department has consistently underperformed industry benchmarks." The lie hit me like a physical blow. My department had exceeded every target for the past 18 months, delivering insights that had directly contributed to 3 major client wins worth over $2 million. "Furthermore," Victoria continued, "there have been multiple instances of unprofessional conduct, missed deadlines, and what can only be described as a concerning lack of attention to detail." I rose slowly from the floor. "Victoria, I think there might be some confusion about the metrics you're referencing. The Q3 analytics report shows." "The Q3 report that was submitted 2 days past deadline?" Victoria's eyebrows arched in theatrical surprise. "The same report that contained 17 data visualization errors that I had to personally correct?" Another lie, delivered with such confidence that I could see doubt creeping into the faces around the table. The report had been submitted on time, and the only errors Victoria had found were stylistic preferences. "I have documentation showing," I began, but Victoria cut me off. "Miss Morrison, I think your defensive attitude is exactly the kind of behavior we need to address. Perhaps we should schedule a private meeting to discuss your performance improvement plan." Everyone knew what that meant. Corporate speak for, "We're building a case to fire you." "That won't be necessary," I said quietly. "I'm confident in my department's performance and my own contributions to this company." Victoria's smile was razor-sharp. "Confidence is admirable, Kanya, but results speak louder than attitude. I'll have HR schedule that meeting for later this week." After the conference room emptied, I returned to my desk where my team of 5 analysts waited anxiously. "How bad was it?" asked Sarah Kim, my senior analyst and the closest thing I had to a friend in the office. "Bad," I admitted. "She's building a case." "A case for what?" "Kanya, our numbers are phenomenal. We just landed the Hartwell account, and the Peterson campaign drove a 38% increase in conversion rates." "It's not about the work," I said quietly. "It's personal." "Personal how?" I couldn't tell her. Couldn't explain that I'd stumbled into knowledge that could destroy 2 careers and expose workplace corruption that made headlines. Couldn't admit that I was being systematically destroyed by a woman who would rather ruin my life than risk her own secrets being exposed. "I need you to help me document everything," I said instead. "Every report we submit, every deadline we meet, every piece of positive feedback from clients. We need a paper trail that proves our actual performance." That afternoon, I received an email from HR requesting my presence at a meeting to discuss performance concerns and potential development opportunities. Victoria was moving forward with her plan. Friday morning arrived like an execution date. I dressed carefully, gathered documentation supporting my performance record, and arrived at the HR office early. Victoria was already there, seated across from Janet Wheeler, our Director of Human Resources, with a manila folder thick enough to suggest she'd been building her case for some time. "Victoria has brought some concerns to my attention regarding your performance," Janet began. "I want to give you an opportunity to address these issues before we proceed with any formal actions." Victoria opened her folder and began reading from what appeared to be a prepared statement. On March 15th, Kanya missed a deadline for the Morrison Group quarterly report, forcing me to personally intervene to ensure client satisfaction. That report was submitted on March 13th, 2 days ahead of schedule, I replied, opening my own folder. I have the email confirmation from the client acknowledging receipt. Victoria's jaw tightened. The initial submission contained multiple errors that required significant revision. I pulled out a printed copy of the client's response email and slid it across the table. The Morrison Group's feedback describes the report as exceptional work and specifically praises our data visualization and methodology. Janet read the email carefully while Victoria's composure began to crack. For the next 30 minutes, I methodically dismantled Victoria's case. For every missed deadline she claimed, I had email confirmations of on-time delivery. For every client complaint she alleged, I had testimonials praising our work. By the end of my presentation, Victoria looked like a woman watching her carefully constructed house of cards collapse. Janet's expression had shifted from neutral concern to something approaching suspicion. "This is quite a discrepancy," Janet said finally. "Victoria, given the documentation Kanya has provided, I'm having difficulty understanding the basis for these performance concerns. Numbers can be manipulated," Victoria said desperately. "The real issue here is a pattern of insubordination and resistance to authority." Janet nodded slowly. "I'll need you to provide written documentation for any future concerns you wish to raise about Kanya's performance. Anonymous complaints and informal observations aren't sufficient grounds for disciplinary action." After we left Janet's office, Victoria and I walked to the elevator in tense silence. As the doors closed, Victoria finally spoke. "You think you're very clever, don't you?" "I think I'm protecting myself from false accusations. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Kanya. I've been in this business for 15 years. You're not as important as you think you are." "Is that a threat?" Victoria smiled coldly. "It's a prediction." Monday morning brought a new development. I arrived to find my desk access had been temporarily suspended due to IT security updates. My keycard wouldn't work, my computer password had been changed, and my email access had been restricted. "It's just a precaution," explained Tom from IT, looking uncomfortable. Victoria requested additional security protocols for certain workstations. I looked around and noticed that no one else seemed to be affected by these mysterious security updates. "Tom, how many other workstations required these updates?" He couldn't meet my eyes. "Just yours." By restricting my computer access, Victoria was making it impossible for me to do my job while simultaneously creating documentation that I was failing to meet my responsibilities. Around noon, Sarah approached with worry written across her face. "Kanya, I need to show you something," she said quietly, handing me a printed email. "Victoria reassigned the Hartwell account to the creative team. Marcus is delivering your presentation tomorrow." I stared at the email, understanding exactly what was happening. Victoria was systematically removing my successes, redistributing them to other departments, and creating a narrative where my contributions were negligible. "Sarah, I need you to print out every piece of documentation we have on the Hartwell project. Every email, every research report, every client interaction. What's really going on here? This isn't just about performance issues, is it?" "I discovered something I wasn't supposed to discover," I said carefully. "And now someone is trying to make sure I can't talk about it." Before she could respond, Marcus Chen appeared at my desk, looking uncomfortable. "Hey, Kanya. I wanted to talk to you about the Hartwell handoff." Victoria thought a fresh perspective might help close the deal. "A fresh perspective on research you didn't conduct and insights you didn't develop?" Marcus flinched. "I'm planning to give full credit to your team's research." "Marcus, can I ask you something? Do you think I deserve what's happening to me?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Marcus's face went through several complicated expressions before settling on guilt mixed with fear. "I think workplace dynamics can be complicated," he said finally. "Sometimes people get caught up in situations that are bigger than their individual contributions." "People get caught up? Or people create situations that put others at risk?" Marcus went pale. "I think Victoria has her reasons for the decisions she's making." After he left, I sat in my car and made a decision that would either save my career or destroy it completely. I called Jennifer Chen. "Hi, Jennifer. This is Kanya Morrison from Marcus's office. I'm working on planning the company holiday party, and I wanted to make sure I had Marcus's schedule right. He's been working a lot of late nights lately." Late nights? Marcus has been home by 6:30 every evening for the past month. What late nights are you referring to? Oh, I must have gotten my wires crossed. Sorry to bother you. But as I hung up, I knew Marcus hadn't been working late nights. He'd been lying to his wife about where he was spending his time, which meant the affair was ongoing. The next morning, I met with Tony Martinez, a former police detective who specialized in corporate investigations. Here's what I need, I told him. Proof of an ongoing affair between two employees, one of whom is systematically harassing a third employee who has knowledge of the relationship. Corporate investigations get ugly fast, Tony warned. If these people are willing to destroy your career to protect their secret, they won't hesitate to escalate when they realize they're being investigated. They've already escalated. I can't access my computer. My projects are being reassigned. And my boss is building a case to fire me based on fabricated performance issues. What followed was the most surreal week of my professional life. By day, I sat at my desk pretending to work while being systematically excluded from every meaningful project. By night, I provided Tony with schedules and detailed information about Victoria and Marcus's routines. The breakthrough came on Thursday evening. Tony called with excitement in his voice. I've got them, he said. Hotel receipts, surveillance photos, and a very interesting paper trail of expense reports that don't match their official schedules. What kind of paper trail? Your boss has been charging personal expenses to company accounts and covering it up by claiming they were client entertainment costs. Hotel bills, restaurant charges, even jewelry purchases. She's been using company funds to finance her affair. How much money are we talking about? Conservatively? About $15,000 over the past 6 months. Victoria wasn't just having an affair, she was embezzling company funds to pay for it. Friday morning, I requested an emergency meeting with the board of directors. At 10 a.m., I sat in the executive conference room facing 5 of the most powerful people in the company. Miss Morrison. Board Chair Margaret Walsh began. You've made some serious allegations. Before we proceed, I want to make sure you understand the gravity of what you're claiming. I understand completely. I'm alleging that Victoria Ashford has been embezzling company funds to finance a personal relationship, and that when I inadvertently discovered evidence of this relationship, she began systematically harassing me to ensure my silence. I placed Tony's report on the conference table. I've hired a private investigator to document the pattern of financial irregularities. The evidence includes hotel receipts and retail purchases that were charged to company accounts but appear to be personal in nature. What kind of amounts are we discussing? Asked Patricia Lee, the CFO. Approximately $15,000 over 6 months, possibly more. The number electrified the room. $15,000 was more than enough to constitute felony embezzlement. And you believe this financial misconduct is connected to the harassment you've experienced? Margaret Walsh asked. I believe Victoria discovered that I witnessed her affair with Marcus Chen, and she's been trying to discredit and remove me to prevent that information from being revealed. I described the evening 3 months earlier when I discovered Victoria and Marcus in the supply closet. The room was silent as I recounted the incident. Why didn't you report this incident at the time? Because I was embarrassed and didn't want to get involved in someone else's personal business. I assumed it was a private matter that had nothing to do with me or my job performance. But your opinion changed? My opinion changed when Victoria began systematically undermining my work, restricting my computer access, and building a false case against my performance. It became clear that my knowledge of her relationship was being treated as a threat that needed to be eliminated. The board meeting concluded with a decision to immediately suspend Victoria, pending a full investigation. I was placed on paid administrative leave while the allegations were reviewed. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Kanya, what the fuck did you do? Victoria's voice was pure rage. I reported financial irregularities to the board of directors. You reported lies and fabrications because you're a vindictive bitch who can't handle being held accountable for poor performance. The board will determine what's true and what's fabricated. This is going to destroy you. Do you understand that? I have 15 years of reputation and relationships in this industry. You have nothing. When this is over, you'll never work in marketing again. Maybe. But you'll never embezzle company funds again either. The line went dead. For the next week, I lived in strange limbo while an external firm conducted the investigation, interviewing employees and reviewing financial records. The answer came in a phone call from Margaret Walsh. Miss Morrison, I wanted to personally inform you of the investigation results. Victoria Ashford's employment has been terminated, effective immediately. The financial irregularities you reported have been substantiated, and we're pursuing criminal charges for embezzlement. And Marcus? Marcus Chen has also been terminated. While we don't believe he was aware of the embezzlement scheme, his personal conduct violated several company policies regarding relationships between supervisors and subordinates. What happens to my position? You'll be returning to your role as Director of Digital Analytics, with a formal apology from the company and compensation for the damages to your professional reputation. Additionally, we'd like to discuss a promotion to Senior Director level, given your integrity in reporting this situation. 3 months later, I was settling into my new office, 1 floor up from my old desk, with windows overlooking the harbor and a salary that reflected my actual value to the company. Victoria had pled guilty to embezzlement charges and received 2 years probation plus restitution. Marcus had found a position with a smaller firm, and I'd heard he and Jennifer were in marriage counseling. My team, now expanded to 8 analysts, was thriving. Sarah had been promoted to senior analyst, and we'd landed 3 major new accounts based on our reputation for delivering honest, thorough research. Most importantly, I'd learned to recognize my own worth. For years, I'd accepted that workplace politics were something that happened to other people, that keeping my head down and doing good work would be enough to protect me from the machinations of those with more power and fewer scruples. But power, I'd learned, wasn't just about position or seniority. It was about being willing to stand up for what was right, even when doing so put everything you'd worked for at risk. The evening I received my promotion, I sat in my new office after hours, looking out at the city lights and thinking about the journey that had brought me there. 6 months of fear, uncertainty, and systematic harassment had ended with vindication and advancement beyond anything I'd imagined possible. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Congratulations on your promotion. You earned it. Jennifer Chen." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "Thank you. I hope you're doing well." Her reply came quickly. "Better every day." As I turned off my office lights and headed home, I reflected on what I'd learned about power, justice, and the cost of staying silent when witnessing wrongdoing. The old Kanya would have pretended she'd never seen Victoria and Marcus together, would have accepted the harassment as inexplicable, would have quietly looked for another job rather than fight back. But that version of myself had been built on the assumption that other people's actions were none of my business, that professional success came from avoiding conflict and maintaining neutrality in the face of injustice. The new Kanya understood that sometimes neutrality was complicity, that keeping secrets could make you an accomplice to the very behavior you found objectionable. I had discovered that standing up for yourself required courage, preparation, and a willingness to risk everything you'd worked to build. But I had also discovered that the alternative, accepting mistreatment to avoid confrontation, was a different kind of risk that could destroy you more slowly but just as completely. Tonight, in this moment, I was someone who had chosen truth over safety, justice over convenience, and my own integrity over the comfort of staying silent. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough.